So onward we go, creating and implementing a budget. Budgets, the main purpose of budget is to help you live within your income, spend your money wisely, reach your financial goals, prepare for financial emergencies, develop wise financial management habits. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this budget. So keep in mind that when we're talking about a budget, is that what we're really looking at is how we're going to be using that income, how that income is going to be spent, if you will. And when I say spent, it could also be saved, the residual piece that's left over. And how it is that we develop a plan, because that's what a budget is. A budget is a plan to how to get from point A to point B, all right? So onward we go, creating and implementing that budget. So again, this is that reiterative process where we go through this over and over again. It's the same. We're not looking at a circle, but nonetheless, this is a circular process, meaning that we do this over and over again. It's that wash, rinse, repeat type of deal. So first, we assess our current situation. What is our current financial position? And we also want to, determine what it is that we're trying to, what it is that we're trying to achieve. Okay, kind of broad measures, if you will, like what our goals are, what is our, short-term, mid-term, long-term type of goals. We're back to that again. So the next step would be to plan your financial direction. The actual budgeting activities occur in the phase would include setting those financial goals, estimating income, because remember, that's what budgets are. Budgets are estimates. Budgeting an emergency fund and savings. This is the first thing that you actually do, meaning that you want to set money aside for your contingency plan, your emergencies that arise, right? Next, breaking out your budget according to fixed expenses versus the variable expenses. Fixed expenses are things that you encounter on a regular basis. Paying your mortgage, paying for your insurance, paying for your paying for your car note, all the things that kind of go along with this. Those are those fixed expenses. They can change, but in general, we're talking fixed versus variable expenses, meaning food budgets and so on and so forth, where you may be going out to eat more this week than you did the previous week. So budgeting for this as best you can. You're guessing, you're trying to put this, and then the next step would be actually implementing that budget, and whatever that system might be, keeping track of your spending and matching your spending with that revenue that would be coming in. The next part would be evaluating that budget program, going back and seeing how you did. All right. This is something that's ongoing, but you want to make sure that you track your your anticipated expenditures with your actual expenditures. So review that spending and saving patterns, and to try to come up with a better plan, kind of going forward to make it to try to get as close as you can be to the what actually occurs, and how you can they're helpful in terms of setting markers down so that for future reference type of a situation, right? So you can make adjustments as you go. So again, repetition. Budgeting processes, like most things, there is a process involved. Wash, rinse, repeat. Setting your financial goals, estimating your income, the revenue that's coming in, setting aside money as soon as you can, not as much as is required for to cover your expenses over a few months. To if there are anything that comes up so far as like vehicle expenses out of the ordinary, etc. Things that you can set some money aside for. And again, we're budgeting for those fixed expenses first, that your mortgage payment, etc. Variable expenses, food budgets, going out to a movie, that's on the spur of the moment. Anything that's variable, you want to try to keep track of, and you're recording your spending amounts, recording And this is incredibly important to do this, especially very, very early on, to track your spending um, habits as closely as you can on a daily basis, if you will. So then, of course, after that, you review your spending and saving patterns, and you go back through the cycle again. Review your financial progress, revise this, and revise your budget accordingly. And uh, you provide yourself with feedback. How successfully did you budget? Will the budget work? A budget will work only if you follow it. Again, you've got to stick with the plan as much as you possibly can. Change the plan, but you stick with it. Well planned, realistic, flexible, clearly communicated. And again, this is on a personal basis. So you're telling yourself this, you're talking yourself through these things, and you're keeping track of things as best you can on a personal basis. Okay, so these are the budgets that we have. These are budgets that all of us are pretty familiar with, especially the first one, the mental budget exists in your head, which is not a bad thing. It's with you all the time. It's tough to keep track of, but this is our financial conscience, if you will. Um, I've definitely used mental budgets, and sometimes unless I am paying close enough attention, I can kind of get away from you. So you have to be careful. This is where that physical budgetary part comes into play. This is where, again, my brother who held his credit card statements for 30 years. Mistake, not a mistake, but this is the way he did it. This is a physical budget, tracking everything as closely as you possibly can. Nonetheless, not the most, it can be cumbersome at times, right? You're trying to hang on to all this paperwork, especially today when things are less paper driven and more electronic. So written budgets, actually write these things out by hand, if you will, if you want, or on spreadsheets, etc. Again, computerized budgeting system using Excel or some other software such as Quicken, etc. Lots and lots of apps out there for budgeting purposes. Online budgeting through your banking, again, through your bank or the other apps that are available for you. Some really nifty tools out there, including Mint. I'm not sure I think it's still out there available, but lots of different budgeting apps that are helpful. Be careful when you turn to someone else for that, because you don't want to be providing too much detail to other people about your finances. Maybe you're not. It doesn't bother you, but things to keep in mind. That's so. The idea is, again, of a budget is that you want to have some money, something left over to save. Okay. And so identifying your savings goal. This is where, again, where you're paying yourself first. It's the toughest thing to do, but budgets are helpful in this regard too, because with a decent budget, you can kind of set your priorities up. That's the idea. So the first, again, would be setting up that emergency fund for some unexpected payments, right? Something that happens that you know what's going to happen, but you're not quite sure what it is. So a little bit of insurance, right? Self-funded insurance, uh, uh, all the things that kind of come along with this. So those are kind of the short-term things. Uh, Looking at it like a longer-term look at this would be, trying to save money for, your next vehicle. So when I say your next vehicle, when you buy a vehicle and you're paying for it on, 36 months out to 84 months, I think they've got them now, out to 7 years. What you want to do is you start considering, the next vehicle that you're going to purchase, money for a down payment for a home, um, setting aside money for different projects that you might have, um, not just for retirement. It could be for vacations, etc. Things that are out there that you want to set aside for. And again, always remember when you're saving techniques, remember you're paying yourself first. Really, that's what it is you're paying your future self is really what we're saying. So our savings rate as a country is not all that great. It's pretty darn low relative to other countries, but that discounts or doesn't take into account the fact that we do set aside money for Social Security, but we'll leave that one go for the moment. So we are saving more than we think typically. Um, there are different techniques they could use, and so far as like saving is concerned, payroll deductions, etc., setting up IRAs or 401ks at work, meaning that when we're talking about an IRA, it's individual retirement account. We're setting money aside specifically for yourself down the road. That's what an IRA is, meaning it's a savings tool mechanism, the same as a 401k or a 403b. Those are employer-sponsored programs. IRA is done individually. So this is again calculating your savings amount, based on what your rate of return is going to be, your annual interest rate of return, etc. You're helping you to achieve those financial objectives. Okay. So the first financial goal, if you will, is that, the first column going down, the row going across is the header: financial goal, saving method, annual interest rate, savings balance after X amount of time. So the first is to set aside funds for unexpected financial emergencies. And that's assuming you've got $6,000 set aside, right from the start. And it's getting, picking up interest at a very low rate because you want it accessible. Remember, there's a linkage between how accessible your monies are and the interest rate that you're going to be securing, if you will, meaning that low interest rates, meaning that you can get the money pretty darn quickly. The problem with that is that it doesn't grow very much, doesn't grow very fast, right? It's pretty straightforward. So you're saving for a down payment for a home. That would be the next one, a little bit higher rate. So you're setting aside money, toward that end. And the last one would be for retirement. And these are just examples, kind of going through retirement. And it would be a higher rate of return, but you set it aside for longer period of time rather than, the 2, 4, 5 years or whatever. This is 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Okay. And the longer you set it aside, the more that's going to grow.